Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's a bit of a long time since I've had a video and a guest. So I'm very privileged today to have Dr. Guus Timmerman from the Presence Foundation in Utrecht in the Netherlands. He is a senior research fellow at the Presence Foundation and an expert in presence. So, Guus, welcome so much here on our YouTube channel, and
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to our discussion.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be a guest in this video and so contribute a little to your channel about caring presence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please tell us a bit more about yourself.
So my name is Guus Timmerman. I am married. We have two children, one of 12 and one of 8. And we live in the Netherlands, in the Amersfoort, which is a town in the middle of the Netherlands. I studied physics, theology, and ethics, and I did a PhD about autonomy and authenticity in pastoral care with Professor Andries Baart as one of my supervisors. So I'm working now for the Presence Foundation since 2014. The Presence Foundation was founded to promote presence and to teach presence and to doing research into presence, and also participate in the public debate about good care in healthcare and social welfare. And I'm responsible for doing the research together with colleagues or researchers from outside the Presence Foundation. And for example, we did research into the practical wisdom of general practitioners at the bedside of their dying patient. Now we're doing or finishing a research into what it's like to be a person with advanced dementia, and we're starting to do research into how you can give an account of good care in nursing homes with telling stories. So not only with figures and facts and numbers, but also with stories.
Hmm.
Yes,
That sounds very, very interesting.
it is. It's very exciting also. It's very
Yes.
exciting. So it's a new kind of a new terrain to think about how you could account with stories, such that also a national inspectorate can judge what you are doing as a nursing home, for example.
Hmm.
So, and I met you and your group in, I think, 2017 when you visited the Netherlands and visited Andries Baart and the Presence Foundation. And I
Yes.
again met you last year when I visited Potchefstroom. You with your colleagues Petro and Babsi, and so it was
Yes.
nice too.
Yes. It's actually already a long time that we've known one another
Hmm.
and known about one another's work in presence.
Yes.
But every time that I speak with you and your team, I learn so much again about that, and it's as if
Thank you.
I'm just on the right path again with presence, because
Hmm.
you are so solid and steadfast in your view on presence and your understanding of presence, and already been involved with this research for a very long time. So
Hmm.
it's part of how you think and part of how you work. So I
Yes.
learned so much from you.
Thank you. Thank you. And but I would add that I'm a researcher, and I I admire very much the professionals in the caring practices. So they learn us about how it is like to practice presence. So that's what I find interesting about your videos. Hearing nurses and nurse educators and nurse research tell about how they see, uh, experience, encounter the practice of presence. So that's I think we as researchers should always know and realize that they are the person that know what it is like to practice presence, and we can only contribute by describing it, theorize about it, contribute by adding concepts and way of thinking.
No, definitely.
Hmm.
And you said in the beginning that part of your work is to create a social discussion or a social, I can't remember the exact words, but it links with what you are saying now, is
Hmm.
to um, be responsible in the community to promote presence.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you are doing it through research and
Hmm.
giving the concepts
Yes.
names that you see in practice.
Yes, yes. I was talking about participating in the public debate. So I think
Yes.
that's part of practicing presence. That what you encounter and learn being present with people in vulnerable positions. That it's one of the tasks to tell about it, to
Mm,
make it present also in the public debate with, for example, politicians that barely know about how it is to, for example, living in a nursing home or being living on the street
mm.
or whatever.
Oh, that's very interesting. And what I also hear from you is that your research is done in a presence way, trying to understand the other person's viewpoint and what it
Yes,
is like for them.
yes, yes, yes. That was especially the case in this research into what it is like to be a person with dementia.
Mm,
The actual research was done by my colleagues Marije and Yvonne by sitting next to such a person in a nursing home and sitting there for hours and experiencing
wow.
how it is like to sitting there for hours, sometimes waiting for your coffee, not understanding what is going on, and so on.
Mm,
So, and then trying to understand what's going on in the person with dementia next to you, sitting in a chair, saying words that you do not understand, making gestures that you do not understand, or just beginning to understand when you are sitting there for some hours, and then maybe you can understand something. What is he responding to, and so on. And then you really need this kind of carefully perceiving, trying to connect with the other person, attuning to what her concerns might be, and then it's very helpful to to
mm.
practice presence when you're doing when you're doing research. Yes, definitely.
Definitely, yes. And it sounds very interesting and very also a respectful way of doing research.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay, so after your time now involved in research and reading a lot, I mean, in presence and reading a lot on it and doing research on it, what is your view on presence?
Um, I think first that presence is something that you have to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And to practice means also like practicing, for example, yoga or practicing virtues or practicing. So it's not uh, definitely and from the beginning know what you have to do, but doing your best, so to say. Never be sure that it will succeed. Sometimes trying hard to be present and not being present. Sometimes it's given to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's given to you to be or practice presence. So you have to practice it, meaning every time anew trying to do, and it can depend on how you are at that moment feeling yourself, how the circumstances are, with whom you are, whether it succeed more or less, this practicing of presence. And second, I think practicing presence means also that presence is a practice. So sometimes you hear people talking about presence as just sitting down, listening to the other, and following wherever he is going, as if practicing is doing like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Or other time they will say presence is an attitude, or a virtue, or an encounter. Um, but we are thinking about presence as a practice. That means what is called an interplay of doings and sayings and undergoings, not doing one action or specific action that might be part of practicing presence, but in another circumstance or with another person, it might not be practicing presence, this specific action. So it's an interplay of doings and sayings and undergoings that has some kind of a history that is there already when you enter the practice. It has virtuoso practitioners, it has internal goods. Part of it may be how you deal with things, with artifacts, with instruments, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second thing. It's a practice. And the third thing is that I think there is a difference between what you can call effective procedures. So you know what's the aim, you know what steps you have to take, and when you take the steps in the right way, in the right order, then you will attain your aim. It's an effective procedure. But you have also conjectural approaches. So aiming at a certain direction, not knowing whether you will uh, reach that aim. You know what you can do. You have to find out what you have to do at this moment, in this circumstance, with this person. And I think it's important to understand that you are aiming at something, but not have a definite method, a sequence of steps that you can take so to attain your goal. And sometimes I'm not sure whether it is in nursing, but sometimes you hear about being a doctor, that you have the right diagnosis, and then you make a plan, and then you follow the steps that your protocol is giving you, and then you will reach your goal. Well, good doctors as nurses know that they often do not reach their goal.
Mm.
Um, um, but you have to think about your profession as a nurse or a doctor or a youth worker or a pastoral worker or a person that is caring for people with intellectual disabilities, that your what you're doing is conjectural, not effective in the sense of taking your steps and you will attain your goal,
Mm.
but directing at a goal. And then I think the practicing of presence is the heart of it. Whether we are a nurse or a doctor or a youth worker or even a manager, the core
Mm.
or the heart of what you're doing is practicing a presence. So carefully perceiving what is going on, connecting with the other person, attuning to where this person is in his life, what his life course is, what his concerns are, what is where his desires are going. And if you succeed in connecting with and attuning to, then you, together with the other person, find out what is good to do at that moment with this person in in his or her relational network with other person in her of his life, and also me as a professional in my network of a team of other professionals that are dealing with this person or with this network or this community or this neighborhood. So as a professional, you have your own knowledge as a doctor or a nurse or youth worker, but you have to kind of mix it with being present, listening carefully, following the other, deciding where you are going to work with in the life of the other, living in his world with his life course and so on.
Mm.
So that's one of the things how you can think about the practice of presence, for example, in nursing. It's the heart of it. It's the core of it.
Mm. Mm.
You can also think about it as a kind of criterion or a condition of good care. If you want
Mhm.
to care if you want to provide good care, then practicing presence is kind of necessary to have that.
Mm.
Um, so another what we see often is that the practice of presence is also kind of a wake-up call.
Mhm.
So when we give courses to professionals, and we hear very often that they will say, well, present is what I'm doing already.
Mm.
Being present, listening carefully, following the other. And then we start teaching, and then they find out that practice and present asks a lot more than they often are doing
Mm.
or often are um, um, conscious of doing. So
Mm.
I've heard a lot of your interviewees saying, I was doing presence before I knew I was doing
Yes.
presence. That's true. That's interesting. And
Yes.
also then you learn to do it more in a more thought of way,
Yes.
and then you will experience that uh, that kind of opens a new world for you. That is more possible than you ever thought that would be possible,
Mm.
or there's more possible that others were telling you it was possible. For example, in this research into people with dementia, um, when you take the time to sit next to some person, you will see more of her or him as as his or her own being a person, and not a body with a mental illness,
Mm.
but being this person as he or she can be in the best possible way at that moment. When you take your time and you watch carefully and you try to understand the other as a in some way competent person with his own reasons to act in a certain way, then you see more and there's more possible. And the other is experiencing more to be seen, really seen, and really seen as a person worth of being seen.
Mm. I feel so enriched by your answer and the examples that you've given. It's really precious, and I
Mhm.
agree that that interplay between what is happening in the moment is so precious, and
Mhm.
it has that experience of being seen as a person and really seeing the other person is really so enriching.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, definitely. Yes.
Mm. Yes. You've mentioned some examples of where you have encountered presence.
Mhm.
Would you like to give more examples or any specific example that you have in mind?
Well, maybe something more, even more personal. So during doing this research into what it's like to be a person with dementia, my mother was moved to a nursing home because she has dementia, and I learned to when I visit her, I learned to take time to be with her, because when I visit her, then the first thing is that she would say, "Oh, how nice it is that you are here. Thank you very much. Did the nurse know that you were coming? When did you come?" Uh, and that's she's really enjoying my visit.
Mm,
But I understood that she's also um, giving me a position in her world.
mm,
Who is he? Where is he coming from? What is he doing here? How can I relate to him? It takes some time before I I feel that I'm connecting with her, and it asks something from me
mm,
to follow her, to give her time to position me, to go to the toilet and again to the toilet, and then talk about changing her clothes or her shoes or something like that. I don't know what is he talking about. And
mhm,
then after some time, then there she settles down, and then we have kind of a conversation. But I don't know whether she understands me. But when I take time, I can return back to this subject and see whether she understands it or not. And then when I take this time, and we are a little bit lucky, then we manage to come into a relation in which she can be my mother and I can be her son
sure.
in the best possible way at that moment that is possible.
Mm,
When I do not have this time, when I do not take the time, then we meet each other, but there's no kind of a connection. There's no experience of being she being my mother and I being her son, and so on. So doing this research into what it's like to be a person with dementia and experience this in my own private life, so to say, it's both ways very helpful
mm,
to understand. Okay, I I can do it like this, and now I understand why I have to do it like this, and um, that it is depends on me whether she can be my mother and I can be
mm,
her son more
mm,
than it was, and will become stronger. But when I take the time, and I'm willing to give it the time, and I'm sometimes really hard work.
Mm.
Sometimes it's
Mm.
given, and sometimes it's hard work.
Yes.
And yes, well, I would say I'm trying to practice presence in that moment. And there was in
Mm.
this research another was an example told by one of our researchers about a caregiver that helps a person with dementia to wake up, to clothe himself, to shave himself, to doing his hair. And this person was a hairdresser that was his job. And then we'll see that this caregiver is sometimes helping him or telling him what to do or confirming him what he is doing with something very small but very well tuned and very well timed interventions, or so that at the end you see this person being the best possible version of himself because he is supporting him in this very subtle attuned to way.
Mm.
So that's, and then we start to talk about that together they can be, well, let's say together he can be himself in the best possible way.
Sure.
And then we realize that together she can be the caregiver, she can be in the best possible way. And I think that's
Mm. Wow,
this
yes.
was interesting because then you see that these relationships make both of them themselves, so to say, in the best possible way.
Yes. Those are beautiful examples. Thank you so much. And it's much food for thought. And I'm sure that people watching this will, I am planning to watch this again and to learn again from this. So thank you so much for this. And
I
it's really rich.
thank you for
Yes.
asking it because
Okay.
it's because of you are asking it. I'm telling this, so this is
Yes.
also kind of mutual thing. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Yes, thank you. It's also actually then possibly an example of presence in bringing out what is in us and
Yes,
building an idea.
it
Yes,
might
so
be.
thank you
Yes,
for
thank
that.
you.
Yes. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. You said that your Presence Foundation website is developing, or you are building a new website where there's some
Yes,
international inputs. Could you tell us more about that, please?
yes, we have of course a website as all foundations have, but there's really a lot of material on it, but it's sometimes difficult to find. So we decided to build a new website in which the information on it is more accessible than it is now. And so we also decided to make an international part of this website. We have some, not very much, but some publication in English. We will put it on there. So, and we also will ask you whether we can make a link to your YouTube channel because it's also interesting to the Dutch public.
Oh, that
So
will be
we hope to
wonderful.
build.
Thanks.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So we hope to build something that also people from outside can find material that is interesting for them.
Wonderful. So I will put the Presence Foundation's website link in the description, and then I'm
Yes,
sure people will be able to find you from there. Thank you so
thank
much.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this conversation. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep well.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.